China, as you know, is retaliating with 34% additional tariffs on all U.S. imports coming into China. How will Americans feel that impact?
Wolf, Americans are going to feel the impact in a variety of ways. It doesn't show up in the employment report, obviously, because the employment report is for March. It is not for April. And April is the big month in terms of what happens to trade and prices and jobs and the future of the American economy. Americans are going to be paying much, much more because a lot of people don't realize how much of what we buy comes from China. I'm not talking about agricultural commodities. I'm talking about goods and manufactured items and even assembly items. These are American companies doing things in China, also doing things in Southeast Asia, assembling, making things, sending them back to the United States. It's going to be a crude and rude shock for most Americans.
Because so many products that we all buy here in the United States, whether shoes or sneakers or clothes, all sorts of things are imported from China and other countries where they're made cheaper than here in the United States. And the prices now on all those kinds of products for everyday Americans is going to go up. Is that right?
Yes. And this is, and one way of looking at this is the largest peacetime increase in taxes we have ever seen in the history of the United States. And I say that because a tariff is a tax, and people are going to be paying more. A lot of importers would like to maybe avoid shoving that additional cost onto people, but that's what's going to happen because these tariffs are going to be costly and ultimately American consumers are going to pay. And as countries like China retaliate against American exporters, it's going to be even more complicated and difficult because a lot of companies will say to themselves, well, why hire more people if we don't have a market, if we don't have a market in China, if Europe is going to retaliate, if we have the possibility, even the possibility of retaliation around the world, many companies in the United States are going to say, well, there's no point in expanding capacity, hiring. What we're going to do is probably lay people off. And that's what worries me most, because we're on the road to both inflation and recession.
Are you surprised, and you speak as a former labor secretary, are you surprised by such an upbeat jobs report from March that was released this morning? And why do you think this doesn't appear to have helped the stock market, which is clearly not feeling it, at least so far?
Wolf, because the jobs report is looking backward. It's looking at what happened in March. The markets, particularly the stock market, is looking forward. It's looking at what is likely to be in the future. And the stock market and bond markets are all saying, you better hide because things are going to get much, much, much worse.
The White House insists that all of this economic uncertainty is simply part of the temporary, their suggestion, temporary cost to revive manufacturing jobs here in the United States. Does that argument hold up when U.S. goods are now burdened with a massive tariff from such a critical trade ally like China, which, at least until now, used to buy a lot of American products, especially agricultural products?
Look at the agricultural sector in the United States for a moment. I mean, the farmers were burdened in a very, very major way in the first Trump term. They're going to be burdened much more. In agriculture, we're going to see the entire Midwest in very dire straits, I'm afraid, because there's nobody. China's one of the major importers. But beyond that, I worry that we're going to see the rest of the world. I mean, Europe and China, the next obvious move for the European Union and China is to get together and to create a trade zone, in effect, that excludes the United States. So you have Fortress America existing in one sphere and the rest of the world existing in another sphere. Wolf, let me just say this. For 80 years, the United States has profited off of a world trade system. Not perfect. I mean, I am the first to admit many things went wrong. A lot of things could be and should have been changed, and will be, if we had stayed on that same track, could have been changed. But right now, what has happened is the entire world trade system that offered us peace and prosperity for 80 years has been basically thrown out. We are now in a trade war with much of the rest of the world. And that means, I mean, nobody wins in wars. Nobody wins in a trade war. And my great worry is that we're going to see everybody lose, and ultimately tensions mount in all quarters of this world, because everybody, obviously, it comes down to jobs, it comes down to wages. Every household in the world is going to be affected more or less directly or indirectly by this.
Yeah, it's going to cost Americans a lot more for everyday products that they need to buy. If manufacturing were to return, Mr. Secretary, to previous levels, most economists suggest that would take years. Do you believe companies are ready to make that commitment now?
No, they are not. And Wolf, let me just point out one of the reasons that manufacturing jobs were so good in the 1950s, 1960s, 70s is that most of them were unionized jobs. The unions actually contributed to the high wages that those manufacturing jobs provided. Now unions, they used to be, 35% of our workforce in the 60s, 1960s, 70s was unionized. Today, the unionized portion of the workforce is down to 6%. You don't have that bargaining leverage among workers today. All you have in these factories, more and more technology, more and more, and we're going to see more and more artificial intelligence. And so if anybody thinks that there's going to be a huge number of manufacturing jobs created in the United States, they're not looking at technology.